Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. You are with me, Simone Milasas, your host, and I have two, I'm going to say very, very special guests on today. I've actually known them for, feels like forever, quite some time. So I want to welcome Viv Adcock and Tiffani Brennan. So thank you for being here.
And thank you for having us.
So much for having us.
And just so if you want to flip on over to YouTube, don't forget that you can actually see our bright smiling faces there. But if you're listening on Spotify, thank you for being here. So Viv and Tiffani are both certified facilitators. They've been working certified facilitators of Access Consciousness. They've been, how long have you guys been around for? How long, Viv, have you been?
Yeah, I've been around for about 15, 16 years.
Damn, girl. Okay. And Tiffani?
About 20.
Yeah, because I met you as I was meeting Access Consciousness. I think I met you before I met Access Consciousness. So,
yes.
At Mind, Body and Spirit festivals. So I've had a lot to do with both of you, whether it's like in classes or, around the world, as, we've been around for a while. And at a class recently that I did, you guys started talking about something that you started, and it's called the Ladies Lounge. So I would love it if you could, I know, Viv, you were saying to me that what inspired you was Salon de Femmes, a book that was written by Gary Douglas. So can you just give me a little, there you go. If you want to go over to YouTube, you can see the cover of the book. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. So do you want to talk about what did you like about this book? And what was that like moment that you went, oh yes, the inspiration for this?
Tiffy.
Oh, no, she's talking to you, Viv.
I'm talking to you, Viv.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed that cue. I actually fell straight into the energy of this book because for me, this was like, it's almost like a Bible without bastardizing this book. I think as a modern woman in this world, I really struggled with being different. I wasn't the traditional get married, have kids, get a good job, save for your superannuation. I was the total opposite of that. And while I had this total freedom to be me, I also had this constant battle in the back of my head as to what's wrong with me? Why don't I fit in? Why don't I look like anybody else and have a regular life, And this book, which is based on a telecall by Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, for me, this was like the information and the awareness and the empowerment that I always knew was available, but I just didn't know where to find it. And it allowed me to just actually relax into being me and know that I'm not wrong, I'm not wrong, I'm not wrong. And to use all the differences to my advantage and still be this incredible, soft, gentle, but empowering woman that isn't a walkover. So it's a bit of a tool to get all of those together and still be yourself. So this has been my kind of guidebook, if you like, my manual to being a humanoid woman.
Okay. Give me a little bit of because you hit the nail on the head for so many women. You described me and Tiffani as well. We're not normal. We're different. We didn't search for, the marriage, the kid, even though, Tiffani has got a partner and a kid. She did it in a different way. We didn't follow that routine of what you're meant to do, like what society says that you're meant to live. And then you said that you knew you were different. And now with this book, etc., and it's like stepping into being more of you. What is that?
Like I said, there's a relaxation into, it sounds possibly corny, but it's like I'm exploring me, my personality. It isn't my personality, but the things that make me happy, the things that make me joyful, the things that make me really grateful to be alive, because all the other stuff, the conforming and getting the job and doing everything else, I could do it, but it was like I was really flat. I was very monotone and very beige. And to have that sense of actually the joy and the effervescence and the aliveness, the difference that I'd be, it was like that just, it felt so natural. Even if people were, you know, challenged by it, or they couldn't receive it, or they were, you know, threatened by it or whatever. It's like, I've learned now to, instead of always turning me down to try and make people comfortable, it's like, you know what, I'm done apologizing for who I am and the fact that I'm different. And I'm learning to just explore who I am. And that's a never ending journey. You know, it's just the most magical place when you give yourself permission.
Yeah, and giving yourself permission. I mean, I'm just going to say, I think it really is this exploration that you need to do of yourself, and to find out what actually works for you, but not from the exclusion of others. I mean, I love that you've called it the ladies' lounge, because I do see women can sometimes be not the nicest creatures in the world. It's like, you know, I mean, I went to an all girls school, and it was sometimes really nasty and really mean. And I know throughout my whole life growing up, the majority of the time I had male friends, or I had very few female friends, and those female friends acted more like men than women. So it's sort of like, you're like, oh, brace yourself, the women are coming in, you know. And I remember years ago talking to Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and I was like, I don't like women. I don't like them. In fact, and I used the word, I hate women. And he said, well, Simone, you might want to have a look at that, because you are a woman. And I was like, Gary, it's my worst nightmare. If someone goes, hey, let's go out on a girls' night out, or, you know, I'm in a room full of girls, I'm like, how do I get out of here as quick as I can? Like, honestly, my worst nightmare. So one of the things that I did do, this was many years ago, because in Access Consciousness, we talk about hate is a distractor implant. So then it's distracting you from what's actually possible. So I just worked at it like diligently. It's like every single time it came up, I would destroy and uncreate, use the Access Consciousness clearing statement, destroy and uncreate everywhere that I had decided I hated women. I just realized how much of that was my mother's point of view as well. And I destroy and uncreate it. So anyone out there listening, if you're like, oh, I'm the same, it's like everywhere that you've decided you hate women, where you destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. Because what are you avoiding and defending, especially if you are a woman? And I did this over and over again. And I was in New Zealand, and I looked around, and I was in this room, and there was about 12 women. And I was like, and I was breathing, and I was okay. And I was like, damn, this stuff works. I was like, I'm okay. I'm not going to die because I'm in a room just with women. And it's always been something for me that I would have said for years, I've resisted and gone against any like women's group sort of thing. Cause I'm like, really? I'm like, how is this empowering, or how is this creating something greater? And I don't even know if you guys can describe this, but I'm going to ask you to, if you can. It's like that fine line where you create something that is for women and you know, for ladies, etc., but it's not as an exclusion to men. And I know, Tiffani, you mentioned that to me before we started, and I'm wondering if you could sort of navigate us down that road, and how you see this and what you guys are presenting here.
Yeah. It's funny because I also, like, you know, mothers groups and ladies' days out and stuff like that is, you know, also for me is like, oh my God, the worst thing you could possibly imagine. But, you know, we are so lucky to, you know, work with and know so many women that don't just function like you see a lot of women functioning in the world, which, you know, I think Viv and I and so many of us as women have experienced this abuse by other women, you know, competition and bitchiness. And I remember I was I used to work in corporate, and I was in a boardroom one day, and everyone was sort of competing with each other and being mean to each other. They were all girls. And I just said, why don't we just try something just for half an hour where we actually listen to each other and be kind to each other? And they just mocked me for it, you know. And so now I'm lucky enough to be around so many women who truly have each other's backs, who truly want to see each other succeed and be more and be greater. And I know that's not answering your question, but I just wanted to address that when you were talking about,
I gave you a hard question because it is not an easy thing to answer, because it's not really definitive. It's like this energetic thing. So I love it. You're doing a great job, Tiffani.
Yeah. And look, I think for us as well, both Viv and I know you as well, Simone, we like men. We think they're wonderful. And again, similarly, I've spent more of my time probably hanging out with men and being friends with men for that reason of they're not issuey, they're not bitchy, they're not competitive with you in the way that women are. And so we sort of saw, there's something different possible here. There's something different possible where we can be grateful for men, we can include men, we can be aware of the difference that men are, because we are different creatures, and starting to understand men and be grateful for them and communicate in a way that works for them and be honoring of them whilst also be honoring of ourselves and all that sort of thing, I think is all of the energies that we as the Lady Lounge are inviting people to. And then you have, I don't know if you've had the conversation on this podcast, the human-humanoid conversation on here.
Go for it. I've mentioned it before, but go for it, because it's good to.
But that's one of the things that Gary looks at in this Salon de Femme book, which is phenomenal. And one of the things for us as humanoid women is we have this power and this potency. And I think what a lot of women do with that is they try and do things like overpower other women, overpower the men in their lives, rather than really being able to access the potency, the creativity and the potency of what we are and can be as women. You, Simone, you're one of the most potent, creative women that I think a lot of people know. And we are really keen to invite people to be that without creating destruction in the people and things around them.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful that you guys have got this going on. And I know we're going to have in the show notes exactly how you can, find out more about this. And I will ask you guys some questions, but I sort of want to explore like what you're talking about at the moment as well, because it really is refreshing. And I know that the women listening to this are like, like they start to breathe easier, that they're not the only one out there knowing that there's a different possibility. And also men, like you were saying, it's like so many men, it's just like, oh my goodness, if I look at the history of how everything's been put upon us and women's equality, it's like poor men had no idea what to do, like no idea. It's like, I mean, I've heard stories, friends of mine, when they're opening doors for a woman or something, and the woman's like, I can get it, I can get it on my own. And they're like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, not open a door? Open a door. Like, how am I supposed to treat a lady? And I can say, I love being treated like a lady. I absolutely love doors being opened, my jacket being taken off. It's like, a drink poured for me or anything like that. I love it. Chair pulled out, love being treated like a lady. And I get, it's like the capacity that we have to create on our own. Because the other thing I do like, I think where we are at here in 2022 is we get to choose. We get to choose if we want to be in a relationship. We get to choose if we go out and work. We get to choose if we have kids. We get to choose if we have one lover or 10 lovers, or, if you like males or females or whatever you want. There's a lot of choice available right now. And the only judgment I see that is cast upon us is when people get really uncomfortable with what you're choosing because they cannot define it. So then they start to judge it. Because in truth, nothing's a judgeable offense. Like I know, friends of mine who have teenagers at school, it's like, it's okay to be a lesbian. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to have all this stuff going on, to be, a tranny or something like that. Or it's okay to be a footballer, anything. And it's like, I love where you're heading with this, because to me, it's like, how do we empower people to know that they can be them no matter what it is they're choosing, and also not have to lock that in? Because I know I've changed a lot, like from my teenage 20s, 30s, 40s, now I'm 52. It's like, everything has changed so much with how I perceive myself and how I perceive myself in the world and how I also receive from the world. So with this, and it's like, I'd love you guys to sort of talk about too, what has been changing with how you've been interacting and engaging with the women. I noticed you have on your Facebook page too, Wealthy Wednesdays with Bodies. Is that right? Yeah. Tell me more about that, because it's like, and what's been changing with it all.
We began with Wealthy Wednesdays with Money, and I think we were looking at, roughly a 10-week introduction to the tools of access consciousness and knowing that you can change anything financially. But we're giving these little steps, if you like, that are pragmatic and easy for anybody to apply. And then after about 10, 11 weeks, we got, I think we're done. So what's next? And we literally ask the question and allow whatever the Ladies Lounge wants to communicate to the world. We're basically the mouthpieces. So, and then it was, okay, Wealthy Wednesdays with Bodies. And we just started that last week. And it's amazing how often Tiff and I look at creating something, and then, we're in the creation stage, and then we see Dane's doing something with money, or somebody else is doing with something.
All the time.
Yeah. And it's, and again, this element of contribution, where what you offer, Simone, is totally different to what Tiffani offers, or is what different to what I offer. There's no, but that's mine, it's no, we're here with a desire to truly empower. So the Wealthy Wednesday with Bodies is about just celebrating your body as it is right now, knowing it is an absolute walking miracle and a gift to you, no matter what age it is, what's going on with it. For me, my body has been the greatest facilitator. It has given me awareness that I may not have got in any other direction, whether it's through a problem or a disease, or my back. I did discs in my back a few years ago and couldn't walk for 5 weeks, but that was being able to turn that around and get wealth out of that, to receive the wealth of awareness and just the brilliance our bodies are in trying to get us to live differently, be differently, function differently. And that's, for me, the body has been the biggest contribution for me as I've changed over the last 15 years.
And it's like, how many women like their bodies?
Not many.
Almost none. Like the reality that we live in kind of really fosters that judging your body is the right thing to do. And when you're judging your body, you can't have the connection that you really require to be able to receive everything that Viv's talking about. Yeah. And so both Viv and I, through the access consciousness tools, have learned to listen to our bodies and receive from our bodies, and saying my body is probably the one thing that led me to consciousness more than anything. In those beginning stages, my body was yelling at me and doing all sorts of things, and I had already learned to listen.
Tell us more about that. What do you mean by that? Like your body was...
Well, I think even before I came across access consciousness, my body's always been very loud. Like it literally yells at me. So I was a vegetarian for 12 years. And then at about the 11-year point, my body started going, fish, fish. And I was like, and doing everything I could to ignore it and pretend that I wasn't hearing it. But it was yelling at, and my body does things like, it will create something small, almost like, a little whisper, like a little invitation, which, until I started to really play with these tools with my body, I would just ignore, until my body got to a point where it created some sort of pain or some sort of thing that I really didn't like putting a lot of weight on or something, where I had to listen, so our bodies are always communicating with us. And not many of us have been taught how to receive their communication. And also that when you are willing to receive that communication, you can have so much more ease and joy in every part of your life,
I was doing this live last night with Japanese, and we were talking about bodies, and I was talking about that exact thing. It's like, for years and years and years, how much I just overrode my body, but thinking I was going to get somewhere with it. Like, if I judge it enough, or if I don't listen to it enough when it's yelling at me, if I just go, no, and quieten that out, and then I make the decision and I choose, surely that's going to get me somewhere. And I went, I can't tell you enough how much energy that takes. And then when you just finally go, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to just try listening to you. And when my body wants to go to sleep, or when it wants to move, or what it wants to eat and drink, or if it doesn't want to eat and drink, or if it wants to eat lots one day but nothing the next day, it's just like, when you start listening to it, it's just so much easier. But for some reason, some insane reason, we think that if we override it and we judge it, we're gonna find that magic, thing that creates this like, but all it is creating this image of what you're supposed to be in the world. And I see what you guys are looking at here too is not functioning from that place of image, from, as you said right at the beginning, Viv, like finding you.
And I think just to add to that too, Simone, thank you. You've just given me another beautiful download. The elegance, the ease, for me, the elegance is when you're kind of in the slipstream and things work for you, but it's almost as if by magic, it's like, I haven't done anything. It's too easy. I was riding a horse this morning and I was actually learning a new move on the horse and I was finding it really difficult. So I went, okay, body, what if I just get out of the way and let you show me how I can do this? Because that exact thing of overriding was, I can do this mentally, I know how to be mentally strong, but to trust that my body knows how to do stuff, and by asking it a question. And that was the moment, the elegance, the moment I got the move, it was just like sitting in a comfortable armchair, that oneness, that presence of the horse and my body, and every molecule around me had this absolute sweet spot. And for me, the lady energy isn't specific to women. It's available for ladies and gents, men and women, boys and girls. It's that elegance where there's that minimum effort and maximum result, that sweet spot. So they're the energies that I really love to be present with and play with more and more in my life.
You do know, when you said you're learning it and you move on your horse, my visual goes to, like Viv's like standing on the back of a horse, holding it with one rein, it's bareback, and she's like, the horse is at a dead run across this paddock, and she's like, I got this. So.
Actually, no, it was a handstand on one hand with the
okay, slightly off then, slightly off.
Naked.
Naked.
Oh, naked. Tiff is it's too cold at the moment, Tiff, for naked. Otherwise, I'm sure she's just preparing for summer. Cool. So where do you guys, like, what else? Like, where do you guys see this heading?
Lots of places. Viv and I are very much futurists, and so a lot of the things that we think should be happening now, we go, hang on a second, how far in the future is this? And it's usually at least 5 years.
You're smart though for actually asking that, because how long did you not ask that for, and then go to the wrongness of you for going, oh my God, this didn't come into fruition. So guys, if you're listening to this is, you're not alone. How many of you actually create today what the future requires, and then you start killing the future possibilities because you go, well, that didn't work, it didn't show up on that timeline, it's like, nobody got that, and then it's like you just kill it. So right now, if you're listening to this going, oh my goodness, there's people out there like me, will you please destroy and uncreate all the future possibilities that you have utterly destroyed and just kicked out of your universe, and ask for them to come in now and show up now with that ease, joy, and glory. Like, both Tiffani and Viv have been mentioning how that elegance and that lady, it just sort of starts to fall into place, and everything at that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. Sorry, Tiff, I just had to interject with that. So what are you creating today that's going to show up in the future for everyone, and they'll get?
Oh man, I mean, these tools though, like we are so creative, and we've just not been given the awareness and the tools to deal with how creative and how phenomenal we are, So I'm constantly grateful for these tools. And Simone, I work with you very closely. I'm in a lot of your classes, and as much as you say, how smart you are to know that, yes, and because we've been functioning not like that for so long, for me to have daily, weekly reminders of being in these amazing classes with you and other facilitators is such a gift. So a little bit of a side note, but yeah, look, many things. One of the things that I've been really excited about for a long time is having sort of high-end retreats for women and men as well. We want to do some men stuff, but where you're in this beautiful, stunning venue, you might just, not have too many people. It's about nurturing you and your body, and using a lot of the access consciousness body work techniques with them, receiving sessions, facelifts, energetic facelifts that we do, and just starting to do some of these sessions with them where we invite a whole different world of possibilities.
Cool. I love that. Viv, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and it's that the energy of the generation where I was out walking the dog this morning and I've been watching this paddock. It's
after you were doing handstands on your horse.
After I was doing handstands. Had a busy morning, let me tell you. But I was watching that these seeds were planted in the paddock just close to us, and I've been watching them grow each day. Like, just sometimes I don't go down for a week or so, but just watching this incredible energy that everything in nature has, where that little tiny seed suddenly becomes a shoot this big and then grows into a crop, and then feeds whatever. But it's the energy of generation where when we're being us, there's no, we don't burn ourselves out. We don't push ourselves too hard. We don't have to blow a foo-foo valve. We can find that space where we're either on the throttle because we're creating, or we're off the throttle and we're relaxing and allowing. And you've been talking a lot about that relaxation. So whatever we've been talking about getting a membership going where women can come for 6 months, or we're trying to look at what we can offer for whether it's a rank beginner and it's just a taster, or whether it's the retreat and anything in between. So there's always ideas popping, and it's just knowing what goes where and when, but having that generative energy, that source that you are when you tap into that it doesn't have to be a struggle, and you don't have to do it on your own. And that's one I've really had to work with a lot.
I think a lot of us have. So I'm going to talk about something, but then I'm going to ask you guys to give everyone like a tool that you would recommend that they use to start to find out who they are, because you've been mentioning that a few times, and I know some people are like, but I don't know who I am. And it's like, so I want to ask you about that. But I also want to address something, because all of life comes to us with ease and joy and glory is the mantra of access consciousness, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what I see a lot occurring on different groups, the way people talk, social media, etc., it's like everything is like this, rainbows and unicorns everywhere, and it doesn't always address that sometimes there's really hard days. Like, there's some stuff that shows up, and it's like, and to me, the tools that you use with that are just as prevalent as when it's just like, yay, I'm so happy and everything. And I was mentioning to you guys when I came on here, I was like, no pressure, you have to make me happy because I've had a really shit day. But the thing is, I like today, it was really a very interesting day for me. And I spoke to a mutual friend of ours, Christopher Hughes, and he sort of had some stuff going on too. And we were both like, I know it's not mine. And to me, that's a really key tool to start to have a look at when you've got stuff going on. And I've spoken about this on my podcast, but maybe this is your first podcast that you've discovered of mine, is asking the question of who does this belong to? And then also what I was looking at today was, because I just wanted to tell everyone to fuck off and don't talk to me and go away. And I said to Chris, I want to go away for a week and be a hermit, but I know 24 hours in, I'll be bored and I'll want to come back out. But I like the idea of just going, no, I'm just leaving. I'm leaving. I'm going. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not doing anything, And then I've got a podcast, a class, another class tonight after the class. And I was just like, oh, but it had this motion of just like, just do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing. And what I started to look at was, I know it's not mine, right? Got that. And I'm still really aware of this energy. So I was talking to my friend, and I was like, okay, so it's like being aware of this energy. Just because you're aware of an energy, it doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, but don't buy it as yours. And you also don't have to totally dismiss it. Because to me, there's a hell of a lot of changes going on in the world right now. And there's also a lot of changes going on in access consciousness. So it's like, okay, how is this like, what am I picking up on? Because as Tiff, you mentioned too, it's like we are so much more aware and so much more brilliant than we think we are. So what if you could receive all the energies and you sort of knew how to navigate it, not about getting it right, but you're like, okay, this day's showing up. What am I going to choose here? Or, this came along. Okay, wasn't expecting that. How am I going to navigate this? And you start to have that, as you both mentioned, that elegance and that ease with every choice you make. And it's like some days you wake up and you're super happy and you just have this awesome kick-ass day. And there's other days, you know, like I said today, I'm happy, I'm peaceful, and I have ease in my world, and I'm also like, I just want everyone to go away. So it was like, okay, you know, aware of all the energies. Like, don't cut your awareness off. Your awareness is one of your greatest gifts. So I just want to say that, because sometimes I think it gets a little interesting if people are just, you know, get caught on reels and they're going through Instagram and everything's about like, hey, my life is great and all of this, when it's like, well, some days it's not. So how are you going to handle it? How are you going to deal with it? And that all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory is such a good one. So what would you guys, whoever wants to go first, what's a tool that you would like to share with people to sort of start to have that place of where they can find out, you know, who they be?
I think for me, one of the greatest, because everything that you just said, my entire life was in everybody else's reality. And sometimes it just felt so insurmountable because there was so much shit everywhere, whichever way I turned. And yet I knew that wasn't who I was, you know. And so instead of putting all my energy into trying to fix the shit and change it and put, you know, it's like, if I keep working on my issues, then they'll all go. It's like, when do I get my dessert? You know, I've done all this hard work. When do I get the good stuff? And that's actually the moment that access found its way into my life. And the question that it's one of my staples, it's one of my go-tos, is what makes me more alive than anything? And if I'm in that dead, drudgy, woe is me, trauma and drama, you know, the world's against me, going to go down the garden, eat worms kind of day, I allow myself to be in that space for a little while, but it's like I've almost learned to watch it like a TV show now. It's almost comical to me because I've been able to create that space between it and me, the energies and me. And occasionally I get in there, you know, you really do buy it as your own and you really do think it's your own until somebody asks you a question. But that one, you know, what makes me more alive than anything? Because I know that aliveness that's the zest, that's the exuberance, that's the enthusiasm and the exhilaration that I live my life from. And that gets me back into my space again. And it could just be standing on the balcony looking at the clouds, you know, it doesn't have to be
or doing a handstand on a horse.
Naked.
On a horse, naked. I'm never going to live this down.
So if you go to Viv's Instagram or go to the ladies' lounge, you'll see a recent photo of Viv naked doing a handstand. No pressure. This releases in a couple of weeks.
It can be the new talk to the animals ad, Viv.
Exactly. And Tiffani, what's your finale of your question or a tool that you give people?
Yeah, I'm going to say two a little bit, because the first one is just question, you know, because everything that you guys have been talking about in looking at these tools is everything's a question, you know. So if you can get yourself into question, even the question of, oh, what question could I ask here that could change something? But I think one of the things that I've been playing with a lot lately, which I think is actually one of the most challenging, but also, you know, most rewarding tools, is 10-second increments, you know. And when you are having a difficult day or a difficult moment, even just stopping for 5 seconds and breathing and being like, okay, what do I want to choose in this 10 seconds? And knowing that that's all it lasts for. And you can choose something again in the next 10 seconds, whether it's how you choose to respond to a situation, or whether it's, you know, you are having a shitty day and the next 10 seconds you choose to still enjoy, you know, kind of, because sometimes you'd be like, no, I don't want to change it. Like you were saying,
I like
today,
being angry. I like being frustrated. No,
I don't want to use a tool, you know, I'm just having a shitty day. So choose that again the next 10 seconds. But I think that just that 10-second thing, and it takes a bit to work it, but even if you can do it, you know, for a little part of, you know, an hour of your day, it just gets you really present with recognizing that you have choice.
Yeah.
And your choices don't always have to be rainbows and fluffy happiness and joyful choices. You have the range of everything available. You know?
But rainbows do exist, and so do unicorns. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of my favorite tools as well. Actually, my body is really good at using 10-second increments. Like I'll be like, right, we're going to do this, you know, bossy boots. And my body's like, no. No. You're like, okay then, so yeah, it's interesting. So Ladies Lounge, we're going to put all the details down below in the show notes, but just do you have a quick URL that you can give people, ones who are just listening, and then what do they Google? Ladies Lounge?
Yeah, it's probably easiest to find our podcast or our Facebook group, which is the Ladies Lounge Candid Conscious Conversations.
I love it. Candid Conscious Conversations. And then you'll see the lovely Tiffani and the lovely Viv on there as well. So, hey, thank you so much for joining me here today, guys. And like, truly, it's interesting how when you do choose something that is congruent with what you're asking to create in the world, it does change the energy, like from where I was like an hour ago to here now. So I want to thank you both for being in my life and the contribution that you are to me in so many ways. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Simone. And right back at you. I'm off to practice my handstands.
I'm off to go to a class that I'll see Tiffani on.
Yes, I'll be there. Thank you so much for having us. And I'm so super grateful for you and everything you've been choosing the world. And how does it get better?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
And if you like this podcast, subscribe, do all that, check out Tiffani and Viv's podcast as well. And if you go to accessconsciousness.com, you can find Tiffani and Viv there too, because they're facilitators, and you can find literally thousands of practitioners and facilitators around the world. So go check it out if this is ringing true for you, that it was something that you would like to find out about. So thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change, and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.